to it. So the first topic is you can go out of business with too many clients. So too many clients, one of the things that I had the opportunity to go through a program with Jay Abraham, who anybody knows Jay. He had a wonderful operations gentleman by the name of Spike Humer, who's just a great person. And this was one of his favorite topics, was you can get too many clients, and that can put you out of business in a hurry because you aren't ready for it. So either you're too small to facilitate the leads that are coming in. This is something that with Link Strategies and our business model, a lot of our clients experience this because they like an inbound and influx of leads is something we personally experienced. We ran a campaign for ourselves, and we had 300 responses within 30 days, and 280 of them wanted a phone call appointment with me personally. It was absolutely implosive, and it was a good learning experience. Fortunately, they put us out of business, but it did threaten us in a large way because it was social, and it hurt our name brand a little bit. Terms that allow for abusive customers. So, for example, if you have too many clients, and then with those clients you've created a term sheet that allows for like 30-day or 60-day payments, and in this market where it's relatively volatile and people could go out of business any particular day, you don't want to extend terms out to your market as much as possible. So really take a look at your terms that you're allowing. If you're allowing for net 30 or net 10, whatever it may be, because companies are going to really push that. And I work with a lot of Fortune clients as well, and man, they will push that out 180 days if they can, and they'll really push those. So make sure that you're very clear and firm about your terms, because people that want to extend those terms are also probably people you might want to fire before you start. And then the third one is systems and sales promises. Your system and your sales promise is out of sync. So what happens, and this is something that we experienced on our consulting side of our business, was that the sales promise was so grand, but the systems that implemented it were long and they were hidden, so there wasn't a good, clear communication, which is a different point we'll get to. But because the promise and the system itself was somewhat out of sync, created a lot of challenges for that company. So this is something we see with a lot of consulting firms or a lot of people with sales teams that are more complex than like widget-oriented. But those are a couple of the different items. So I just want to share some of these for you. My favorite part of this, or my biggest concern on this one, is too many leads too fast and you don't have the system to facilitate it, which was the first part. So one of the ways that we believe that you can solve this problem is to think about your operational capacities and capabilities to create that maximum customer quality experience, that maximum customer experience. So this is something that Hugh is just absolutely genius at, and I see him in the way that he engages and thinks knowledgeably through a process prior to launching. I'm kind of the ready, fire, aim kind of guy. Hugh, I would suspect you're not that way.
Well, you would be right, and I'll give you a very simple example of how we handle something like this. Mm-hmm. Our business, before we sold, we were serving about 10,400 customers a month, and when you have that kind of load on 5 stores, that is pretty intense. So any single glitch, any single detractor from your customer service experience becomes very expensive. So we were finding that when we were at around 9,000 customers a month, if it was Friday afternoon and there was a customer that for some reason was not serviced properly, and they stood in that line and needed to talk to a manager, it would throw our Friday off, and we would lose roughly between 17 and 18% of the day's revenue. And that's a very big number on a business that has very low margins. So what we did was to, again, engage the customer service experience and to make sure that our operational capacities, with only 13 employees deployed at any one time, we had to make sure we did something else to service those customers that were potentially going to stop our process dead in its tracks. It was a $50 solution, $50 a month. I hired a call center to do nothing but apologize to the customer. They did nothing else but apologize. It didn't matter if we were right or we were wrong. They were given a number to call and complain, and we would make sure that emotionally they were heard. They felt heard, they felt seen, and they felt like they were important. And what that did with a 10,000 customer a month load with about maybe 50 50 incidents in which they were reportable, I would get probably 50 calls to that call center, and simply just giving the customer the ability to be heard usually stopped the escalation process dead in its tracks, which meant that my operational staff had usually between 1 and 2 customers out of 10,000 to talk to, where 49 of them just needed to be listened to. And they were given a phone number, so they got out of the line and no longer held up our process. Does that sound feasible? Like a really easy and cheap solution to keeping a 10,000 member a month shop going. Does that sound helpful,
amazing.
Nate?
Well, it's the insight to seeing what was the core issue and then addressing it and realizing how cheap it was. It was actually just, as a customer experience, what it was, right? I mean, that's where you're focused. And so that's great. And then also what you'll notice about how Hugh addresses these things, it's actually operational efficiencies is what he's focused on. And from my perspective, what that does is that allows for the flow to continue through, meaning that if we knew that you were going to be intaking 100 leads or 200 leads, then what would be the operational efficiencies you would need to have in place prior to launching that initiative? So those are the things that would be. It's just a great way to address the issues, is address the operational efficiencies prior so that we don't have to have this particular problem.